Hello, boys and girls. Arif Blackstone here with another episode of Behind the Keyboard, and today my guest is the one, the only, the author of the Dying Days series, the Dirty Deeds series. He is the co-host of the Mando Method. He is also the owner of the Project Entertainment Network. He is, of course, Armand Rosamilia. Enjoy. Okay, Armand, thank you so much for being here. It's a
Thanks
great
for
pleasure.
inviting me. Thanks for the big payout in my PayPal as well to get me to come on. I appreciate that.
I thought that would be the inciting incident to get you to say yes.
Yeah.
So I recently finished reading Death Metal that you released solely on Godless.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the title alone got me interested. Really, really, really enjoyed it. So far one of my favorite things I've read for 2021 at the moment. So,
Well, I
good work.
appreciate that.
Where did it come from?
That's actually the funny part is that's the very first non-short story. It's a novella. That was the first thing that I ever got published through a publisher back in came out January 1st, 2009. So
Really?
that's how old that is. I mean, I think I wrote that in 2007 maybe. And it's gone through a couple of changes. The original cover the publisher put out was god awful. Hated the cover, and it sold like 20 copies. It was an ebook only in 2009 when not everybody was really
Mm-hmm.
uh, digging ebooks or understood how it worked. And it wasn't even on Amazon or anything. So the publisher literally had it on his own website.
Ooh,
And so
okay.
we sold no copies, and after a year I took it back, and it sat for several years. I did an update on it because my writing had hopefully gotten a lot better at that point, and I put it out myself. I self-published it with a new cover, and it did okay. It did okay, but I had so many other things at the time that I was writing, and I just kind of put it off to the side again at one point. And then when Godless came around a couple of months ago, I said, you know what? This is the perfect place for me to drop this book. And a publisher had picked it up about a year and a half ago, and I actually got a really nice edit for it. But then they ended up not doing anything with it. And once I saw Godless was doing this, and Drew over there said, "Hey, you have anything? I'm always looking for exclusives." And I said, "I actually have two, and Death Metal is definitely one of them." So I gave him that, and I wanted to price it. I priced it. I think it's 89 cents.
Yeah.
I wanted to price it so I could sell some copies, but more importantly, so it's not about necessarily making millions off of it. It's about getting more people to read it than have ever read it. And the same with Toolshed. Toolshed had been an ebook only release 2014 by Angelic Knight Press, who had gone out of business, or
Mm-hmm.
Ragnarok had taken over. And actually, the editor for that, Stacy Turner, passed away recently, which I was really sad. So it was kind of weird. At the same time, Thunderstorm, Paul and everything, they did the behind me. They did
Yeah.
the 29 copy hardcover signed release of Toolshed. Uh, that came out and it sold out within hours, which is great.
Oh.
But I had a couple of publishers ask me about it, and they wanted to do something with it. And one publisher wanted me to do something like, "Oh, let's write a sequel and all this." And I said, "Yeah, again, that's an old story for me. I don't think I could write a sequel to that. I don't think I could write a sequel to Death Metal."
Mm-hmm.
And but then again with Godless, I was like, you know what? Let's throw it up there, and it's doing phenomenal. I'm getting a ton of new readers and fans, and it's funny because to me, those represent uh, a way different person than I am now, and as a person, and also as a writer. So it's kind of weird when you go, "Oh, I love that book," and I kind of cringe, like, "Oh, don't say that. I think I've gotten so much better since then." So that's kind of funny.
No, I get that. See, I didn't know that about either Toolshed or Death Metal. I thought they were things you had written, they were new things you had written specifically for
Yeah.
Godless. So hearing all of that, it's just, I'm not ashamed to say I did enjoy Death Metal, even if it makes you cringe. But I like it.
Well, no, that's better than you saying that book was awful. So I appreciate that. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, I've read, I've read not everything you've put out, but I've read the majority of the stuff you put out for Severed Press. I've read the first of the Dying Days books, and I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it.
I appreciate that.
You know, and that's the thing. A lot of the authors I have on the show, I'm a fan of. So,
Yeah.
um, and like I was honestly nervous approaching you to be on. I don't know why I was nervous. I just was.
I'm not sure why.
I think it's because I've been listening to the Mando Method, the Mando Method and the Armcast, Dead Sexy podcast. So I kind of you build up how you think someone's going to be when you've been listening to them for a while.
Yeah. Well, I can see that. Like I've had a lot of authors, especially on Armcast podcast, that I'm huge fans of, and you always hate you hate to talk to people that you grew up reading and everything, and then you find out that they're jerks or something. And luckily, that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
The only time that's happened is Chuck Buda is a jerk, and Buck Redler and Tim Meyer. Those guys are jerks. But no, otherwise, it's been a lot of fun to be able to talk to people, and pick their brains and find out their careers and what's going on. That's for me. That's always the fun part. And I love podcasts like this because you do a great job interviewing. Like you had JC Walsh on, and I was like, all right, let's see what happened. And it was good because it's a conversation. It's just two guys talking about writing in the business and talking shop. And we don't get that enough.
Yeah.
My wife is not a writer. She's not a creative person. She's the money part of all this. And some days I'll just be on and on and on about something, and she kind of laughs and she's like, okay, and she doesn't understand creatively what I'm talking about. When we talk, oh well, this will cause this amount, then she understands.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to talk to someone like you or JC or whoever about the creative part of this and what we go through.
Oh yeah, and that is the point of this. I getting to speak to JC, Tim Meyer, Lee Murray, Jake Bible, all these sort of people, and just asking them similar questions, but just hearing what they have to say is all completely different.
Yeah.
And I mean, the question I've been asking more and more, and you on your bio, in your bio, you say you don't consider yourself to be a horror writer. You don't really care about genres. Why is that?
I think for me, I think the beginning part was when I first got in, so you're talking 2009. I mean, I've been writing for 30 something years, but 2009 with the explosion of ebooks and Amazon and all that, before Dying Days, there was actually Highway to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an extreme zombie book. The original version is like disgustingly, I mean, it was like, for me, it was, I want to see if I can write a zombie book, and I want to see if I can write extreme horror. And I did that. And it was for a publisher that were taking calls for novellas, and I didn't make the cut, but they were really kind of like, you got to publish this. We only took 4, but this is like number 5 kind of thing. And so when I published it on Amazon, nobody else was really, I mean, there were zombie books, but there was like a dozen. There was nothing. It was the Wild West back then. And I sold a ton of books. And then I wrote a couple of short stories, and what eventually became Darlene Bobbich, and it eventually became the Dying Days 9-book series. And what's funny is I was putting so many of those out, and so many of short stories and side stories and all this. People started saying, zombie author Armand Rosamilia.
Yeah.
And it bothered me because I didn't want to be a zombie author. I wanted to be a horror author, or I wanted to be an author. People, Dean Koontz and Stephen King, people who don't know say, well, they're horror authors, but they're not. They're authors. They write so many different genres. They write so many different things. So from the beginning, that's what I wanted to be. Writing wise, I don't think I could have done it because I don't think I had the skills. I was still learning my voice and everything back in 2009 and a few years after that. But that was kind of the push for me. Not that I'm going to be a jerk about it and go, oh, don't call me that, because I'd rather you call me a zombie author than don't call me an author at all.
Yep.
But I wanted so much more in my career than just to be known as the guy who wrote 37 books about zombies.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I mean, you have kind of written all over the place with with everything. And is that just because you enjoy so many different genres and you just want to write stories in each of these different things, or is it just more that's just how it's happened?
I am creative to a fault, so I'm like all over the place. Like I don't have ADHD, I don't think. I mean, I've never been diagnosed, but I just ideas won't stop. It's that
Mhm.
cliche of you have 1,000 ideas in your head, you're never going to write everything, and it's true. And so for me, especially in the beginning, you just write as a brand new author or somebody who went through the 90s and early 2000s of getting a ton of short stories published in zines and different places, but never really hitting the sales, never being able to do this for a living. I just wrote a lot of different things, just kind of throw it up against the wall and see what sticks. And most
Mhm.
of it was awful, but I also read a lot. I read a lot of different things, and I read mostly nonfiction. So it gives you a ton of ideas. And when I started doing it, I didn't again, I didn't want to be a zombie author.
Mhm.
And then I didn't want to be a horror author. But those were the things I was writing in. And so I wrote other stuff as well, because I'd written in early 2000s, I was writing fantasy. I mean, I was a big fan growing up of sci-fi and fantasy. And so I wrote some of that, and it totally bombed. This was before Amazon and everything else.
Mhm.
And so, horror's always been my first love. Dean Koontz is amazing to me. So for me, kind of what he did. I mean, he writes action adventure. He
Yep.
writes a lot of different things, and that's where it kind of went for me as an author. I'm just going to write something, and then we're going to figure out whether it's a publisher or I'm self-publishing it. Then we're going to figure out what the genre actually is here.
Yeah.
And as I'm writing something, I start to see some of the tropes or some of the ideas. I mean, even in my contemporary fiction, even in other stuff, there's still that dark part. There's I don't think I could write I know I can't write romance unless you pay me to ghostwrite it a lot of money, which I've done in the past. And that's how I know it's god awful for me. God bless you if you can write that stuff. And I guess if you're a fan, but if you're not a fan of it and you're forced to write for a paycheck on that stuff, it is really tough for me.
Okay. I've never had that, big fat paycheck and told, yeah, write romance. I've never had that. So I don't know the pain, but I get the feeling it would be pulling teeth.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough to for the point I wrote something that my wife was like, she was like, you gotta stop, don't do any more of this. And then of course the book comes out. I ghostwrite it. The book comes out and it hits #1 in romance on
Whoa.
Amazon. And I'm thinking they paid me a lot of money for this, but they're making way more money. And they came back to me again to write another one, and I had to tell them no, just because I had other things I was doing.
Yep.
And it's tough writing in somebody else's world, and it's tough to and I wrote 14 books for a company, mostly zombie stuff, stuff that was eventually, some of it was eventually released as movies. So I was writing off of their scripts, or I was writing off
Okay.
of, like, they were actually, one of the movies they were actually shooting while I was writing the book version of it. So they were sending me dailies, which is kind of neat to watch the actors and then pull the dialogue from the script and from the action and all that. Those were fun. Those were totally cheesy, and um, but again, that was part of what allowed me, 9-10 years ago, to become a full-time author, because of those contracts, and because I write so much, and
Hmm.
I'm able I'm able to write stuff that sells. I mean, I'm never going to be Stephen King. I'm never going to be Dean Koontz, but I, I feel like I'm one of the few guys that's actually making a living doing this. And it sounds arrogant, but it's true. I mean, I know a ton of guys that are great writers and phenomenal, and then they're going to their day jobs on Monday mornings
Uh-huh.
because this isn't paying the bills.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. It's that struggle of, okay, writing. I mean, I quit my day job at the end of April because I'm moving back to Australia and I'm going to go full time just to
Right.
see if
Yeah.
if I can make this work. So I really know that struggle of, okay, I want to create. I just want to create all the time and write things, put things out, and the things I want to do, and then having to go, well, this is not going to sell. This is not going to pay the bills. This is not going to,
Right.
and it's a struggle. It's a real struggle.
There's a difference between, we all start writing for the fun of it, and we write anything we want. And that's when I mentor a lot of authors, and I tell them that. Write what you're in this great place. Write what you want. Write what's the thing that beats you up and keeps you awake at night. Write that, because at some point down the line, you're gonna have to write, not necessarily to market, which is always sounds like an awful thing, but I have ideas, say, in the horror genre, and I go, well, this one will sell and this one won't. So I'm going to write the one that's going to sell first, and then maybe times will change and that other one will work.
Yep.
I never wanted to do 500 zombie books. I didn't want to be that guy who just kept writing and writing. So that's why I did 9 books of the main series and about 8 or 9 offshoots of that. And that was enough. I mean, that was, and it still sells great. It's been years. I mean, the series is complete, but I don't think.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Shit. I live alone. I've got a package to quickly grab. I'm sorry.
No problem. That's funny.
I'll be right back.
Yep.
I knew that was going to happen.
that always happens. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I knew it was going to happen. When I sit down to do an interview, that's when everything goes. So sorry about that.
No. I 100% understand it.
So you were saying that you didn't intentionally set out to write, all these zombie books.
Yeah, and so it gets to the point as a writer where, especially if you want to do this for a living, especially if you want to make this a career, you start to shuffle through ideas and go, this is going to sell, this is not going to sell. And again, that's a personal thing. So it's do you want to work for the big 5 and make that kind of money and be on Oprah and those type of deals, or do you want to work with some really good small presses and make that your living? Or do you say, screw all that, I'm going to be a self-published author, but I still need to pay the bills, and I still need to, no matter what course you take. So for me, it got to that point where I said, you know what, I got to do something to make me money. But I don't want to just start writing romances. I don't want to start writing stuff that's not going to be true for me, because I think the readers would not like that. And even when I wrote contemporary fiction, when I did the Flagler Beach fiction series, it was character stories. It was based on some real people that I had met. I used to sit in a place, Kokomo's Cafe, every day from like 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. while my son was in high school. I would drop him off because we had moved, but I still dropped him off in high school. And I would sit in there all day and I would write, and I would drink coffee and just listen to people and eavesdrop on conversations when I wasn't writing. And I started writing fictionalized versions of a lot of that stuff. And I was really worried that the people who read Dying Days, the people who read my horror stuff, weren't going to like it, but I was like, I don't want to pen name. I don't want to have to start over.
Yeah.
And I just threw the first one out there to see what happened, and it did really well. And I got new readers readers who had read all my horror stuff and were just like my voice, which is great. And I got a lot of emails and from that, which really got me, okay, you know what? I can write in any genre. Some of it's going to sell, some of it's not. And I mean, I have horror stuff that I think I finish and I go, oh my God, this is the one. This is going to be the greatest selling book I've ever done. I can't top this book. And then it does awful. And then there's other books that I just not that I phone them in, but I just kind of go, I'm not killing myself on this one. I'm writing a fun story. I'm a pulp fiction writer. Don't overthink it. There's a monster. There's a bunch of kids. Let's throw them together and kind of really for fun, see what happens. And then those sell phenomenal. So you just never.
Well, yeah, it's like that. I think it was William Goldman said it about Hollywood. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's the same with writing. Same thing. I've had those moments where I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be a good seller, and no, it's just craps the bed and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the fun and the awful part of being a creative person. It works. It worked in my head. It worked on paper. and then all of a sudden I'm getting bad reviews, or all of a sudden, no publisher wants it,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean, there's so many things against you as a, whether it's this, whether it's film, whether it's being a musician, whatever. I mean, the climate we're in right now is is tough. I'll write a book and then I immediately get the when's the next one coming out, and
Yep.
the damn thing was released today, and you want the next one, and I'm like, this takes you a little while to write this, you know.
Oh yeah, that's it. We're in that culture of binge watching, and
Yeah.
you know, like on some of the Facebook groups I'm part of, people are saying, especially in the horror community, some people say, just as readers, I hate when an author releases the first book in what is going to be a series because I want it all now.
Yeah.
And then that becomes the question: well, do you write a whole series and you save it, and you don't really say any of it until you've written the entire thing, and then you just drop it, or
Just
you
keep
know,
going. I think no matter what, you have to set the expectation. So if you put book one out, I never expect book one to sell really great. But if I go, okay, well, book two is coming out in 6 months, and then I put no, book three is coming out in another 6 months, and then you start to kind of, um, as you're staggering them and it makes sense, then the readers by book four or five, that's what everybody says, and it's true for me. By book four or five, all of a sudden everything starts to pick up, everything starts to run. And I've done trilogies that have sold not well until that third and final book because they want to read the entire story.
yeah,
It's the same with binge watching on Netflix. There's some great shows, season ones in there. I won't watch them because I want to watch all of them. And that's for me. That's like for me that's important. My wife right now is watching Rizzoli and Isles,
mm-hmm.
which I read the books, a couple of the books years ago, and but it's funny because her thing is, oh, this is complete. This is 5 series, seven seasons, whatever it is. I'm gonna binge watch this whole thing now because I know there's an end to it. And I think a lot of readers do that too. When I hit Dying Days 9, and I said, "Here's 9 books." I had Jack Wallen redo all the covers, so
Yep.
all 9 books together form one bigger picture, and it sold like crazy. It's still my number 2 selling series, and I haven't had a new book in that in years. But because it's a complete series, and I can sell it as a 9 book complete series, there's a beginning and there's definitely an end, and people want that. And as a reader, I want that too. As a reader, I won't start something until I see that it's at the end.
Yep.
But you also play with, as a writer, you have to play with, do you want to do that? Do you want to set it up that, or do you want to do? So now in January, I'll be doing a brand new adventure series, and it's loosely tied into my crime thriller, my Dirty Deeds series,
Yep.
set in the same world, but a brand new, different character. And my goal is to rapid release. So the middle of January, book one, the middle of February, book two, the middle of March, book three, and just have all those 3 books out, and then uh, 45 to 60 days later, book 4, 5, and then 6.
Okay.
And I'm going to do six books next year in this series, and a couple of Dirty Deeds books, and that's going to be mainly my writing. So there won't be a lot of horror, except if it's something I've written last year or this year that's going to be released, which is still a few things. And I'm going to try it. I'm going to see if that works. Guys that have done it have had phenomenal success. Dan Pettivona, amazing when he switched from doing all his horror stuff to doing all of his thriller stuff. And it's still dark and it's still his voice, but I mean, he's killing it because he's doing 45 days from start to finish. He's putting a book out.
Whoa.
I mean, it's ridiculous the way he's doing it, but it works. And you know what? If I didn't say that to you, you would read and go, wow, this guy wrote this book, took him a year to write this book because there's so much to it. But he's created his system and it's working for him. And it's one of those guys that I envy, and it's also one of the guys that I basically tell him I'm going to steal everything I can from you because I want to sell books like you're selling.
Yeah, and I mean that, like, I can't remember, I read it somewhere, someone having a rant about that, like references in books, or like stealing from other authors or other, like from movies, TV shows, and all that. And I don't know, for some reason that when you said, you said it now, you're going to steal from Dan, I kind of go, well, it's not really stealing. It's more, like if you're referencing something in a book, it's a reference and it's in your voice. Like the other day, on Sunday, I interviewed Pix Britain, and she's got this, newsletter that, does really well for her. And I'm still figuring out mine. And she literally goes, steal mine.
Yeah.
She said, take what I've done and use it.
Yeah. And I'm not stealing his ideas. I'm not stealing his books. I'm stealing the way he does it.
Yep.
I'm stealing the, I ask him a ton of questions. Wayne Stinnett is another guy who does phenomenal in with his adventure books. And between the two of them, I mean, I pick their brains constantly. Dan with Amazon ads, with different things. There's so much, and for me, there's a good group of guys that will share all that. So if Jay Wilburn's doing something, he'll tell us. He'll say, "Hey, I'm doing this," or "Hey, I've started this," and so, I mean, we bust each other's chops about it. I always joke. I go, "Oh man, I'm going to get into Twitch like you're doing," and he says, "Stay in your lane, Rosamilia. I'm doing this," but it's funny because we all started out kind of as horror authors. That's our first love.
Yeah.
But if you look at what a lot of us are doing now, Jay's doing the young adults, he's doing the middle grade stuff, and Chuck Boot is doing Westerns as well. I mean, so we're all doing other stuff that we really like as well, because writing in one genre, no matter what the genre is, limiting for me as a creative person. So even though I keep saying, oh, I'm not going to be writing any more horror coming up, I still do some on my Patreon. I still just started a brand new kind of a cosmic horror story on there, which will be eventually be a novel that I'll release somewhere down the line, or a publisher will.
Yeah.
So it's still my love. It's still stuff that I enjoy writing, and I absolutely love reading it. I mean, I'm reading a Cthulhu anthology on my Kindle right now, and it just gives me so many great ideas, and not ideas, story ideas, just the mood and the setting and different things, and that's never going to go away.
No, I get that. I mean, like, and that's something I've noticed about horror authors like yourself, even me, Jake Bible, the first book published, that's a zombie story.
Yeah.
And eventually everyone kind of tries different subgenres of horror. You've got, you've done your Lovecraftian horror, cosmic horror with Keyport Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And I've got the first two. I got the audiobook versions of the first two.
Okay. Yeah, he does a good job on those.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. Then when I was talking to JC and he said, "Oh yeah, Armand's got me," he asked me to do the introduction for the third one.
Yeah.
My reaction was, "Oh, you bastard." That was my first reaction. Then there was like, "Oh man, there's a third one coming out. Awesome."
Yeah. It's actually, he's actually recording the audiobook now.
Really?
The book came out, ebook and print book came out May 5th, and he is working on the, he's same guy, same narrator, because I really like what he did with the first two, so he's working on the third one, so that should be out soon.
Oh, nice. Well, I know where some hard-earned dollars is going now. And I mean, how important is it? Like, you were talking about writing to market, and that's, it is kind of a dirty phrase in the, indie, but how important is it at times to kind of go sit there and go, yeah, I know, you've got to hit those key moments.
I think for me, if I have the idea, if there's an idea in my head somewhere that I know will work for a market, or will work to sell some books that's not crazy obscure. And, for me, as long as it's there already, it's not like I'm doing anything dirty.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I have 500 ideas right now in my head, and I'm kind of going, okay, let's pull 2 or 3 from the ether and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Severed Press, when I did those books for Severed Press, it was a definite, okay, I've read a ton of their books. I love their books because they're just monster books. It's like just and they're not even that they're cheesy. They're just pulp fiction. You read them fast. It's 30,000 words. You blow through them in an afternoon. You get your giant monster. You get a bunch of people who deserve to be killed, and exotic settings and all different things. So for me, that was the fun when I started writing for them. And I wrote a Gromny for them, and they
Mm.
really liked it, and immediately said, "Pitch me more books," and they ended up buying 5 more. And so for me, I know I kind of pull those ideas. There's certain things I'm not going to pitch to them. There's certain locations that I know they're not interested in,
Yeah.
that they've done it a million times or they just don't like it. So for me, it's again pulling those story ideas and give them. I think I gave them 8 or 10 story ideas, and they ended up buying 5 of them after a Gromny had come out. So I actually finished the 6th one for them, trapped in Denver during a snowstorm, and creatures are released
Oh,
in
nice.
at the airport. And it was funny is that when I pitched all the ideas, I was actually in Denver airport. We were stuck there for like 8 hours because of thunderstorms. We were coming back from California, so I was literally my wife and my daughter. I'm like, give me some monster ideas, and we were kind of throwing out ideas and just having fun with it. And I ended up writing a bunch and emailing him. And by the time we got on a plane to go home, he had already sent me a contract for 5 stories.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, I love writing. Like, I know some authors who are a little, if like, oh, Severed Press, like, you know, when I told Dad they were going to publish me back in 2018, Dad got onto their website and literally goes, "Oh, love the covers. They're the Sci-Fi Channel of horror books."
Right? Yeah, they're definitely a publisher that is, as Jay Wilburn says, stay in your lane. They know exactly what they're looking for, and they have a crazy rabid reader base
Yep.
that will buy everything that they put out because they know what it's going to, they know, what it's going to be about. I mean, it's literally when I pitched books to them, I said, on 2 or 3 of them, I said, okay, it's a monster. And they said, what's the monster? And I said, you tell me.
Yep.
Give me some ideas. And they were like, well, we need a Bigfoot. We need another Bigfoot book. We need a Chupacabra book. We need an alien book. Perfect. Then let me rewrite these slightly, my pitches. And they ended up taking most of them because it's fun. Again, it's I consider myself a pulp fiction author. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on description and crazy.
Yeah.
It's just whatever I'm writing, and some people love it. Some people give me bad reviews because of it, and I don't care. I'm still getting. You bought the book. You might hate it, but you still bought the damn book.
Yeah. You've already got the money.
Yeah. I already got your money, so complain all you want.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, I've got 3 books. So pitched them another one that they bought earlier this year, which that was literally an idea, and the pitch came out in 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, I'll send it to them, thinking, yeah, I'm not sure. It could go either way. And he literally, Gary sends back, this sounds like fun. Here's the contract. And I'm just there going, awesome, sold a book.
Yeah.
Crap, I have to write the book.
Yeah. That was the fun part. By the time I got home, I was like, I guess I got to start. I got 5 more books to write. So, but the 6th one, like I said, the 6th one just got done. And what's fun is, I took one character from each of the previous 5 books, and I put them in the Trapped in Denver one.
Oh.
They're all in the airport at the same time when obviously something happens. So that was a lot of fun when I updated the pitch because they wanted this book before Abandoned, and I said no, I'm going to tell you why, because I'm going to do, and they were like, I love it. Okay, just throw it in there. So it worked out a lot, and I enjoyed writing those books. I mean, there was a formula to it because I had read so many, and I still read so many Severed Press books. I mean, you put a shark or a somebody in scuba gear with shadows in the background, I'm buying that book. I love those books, and so for me that was kind of like, okay, I want to, I'm writing specifically to a market on this one, but it's a market I enjoy. It's a market that I read. So I think that was, for me, that was important too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And will you, in the future, would you pitch more to Severed? Would you continue to write for them every now and then?
I would love to, but I'm so far ahead with my planning right now. I'm about 18 months out, and I really want to give this adventure series and Dirty Deeds. I really want to give that my full attention for next year. so we've had other things. I mean, I say this not to brag, but again, I'm very blessed. I've turned down several invite only anthologies so far
Whoa.
this year, and a couple of them are like huge, and I'm like, I can't take the time to do this because I'm literally on a schedule to write 400 to 500,000 words in a year, and that most of that is taken up. Most of
Mm.
those are taken up, and I don't want to stress. I don't want to go in and go, I haven't finished this and I got to finish this. And
Yeah.
so those that's tough. And then there's other stuff that's always on the horizon. I would love to do a third Beers and Fears with Tim Meyer and Frank Edler and Chuck Buda. Um, we don't have anything planned for it right now, but that's 10,000 to 15,000 words, that I have to find that spot.
Yeah.
We're just finishing up, me and Mark Tufo, United States of Apocalypse 3,
Oh.
and 2 comes out on the 25th now. It's been years since we did the first one, and then we got a contract for 2 and 3, and then we're already kind of looking at what if they ask for a 4. Now that's another 45,000 words each to write.
Uh-huh.
So again, where do you find the time to write all those words? And so you, as a writer, it's great in the beginning. You just write whatever you want, whenever
Mm.
you want. And then for me, it's I have to write. I have to do 3 Mando Method sprints a day in order
Yep.
just to stay ahead, and be able to take days off when I want to take days off, and to be able to not stress when I don't get those things done, or I'm doing podcast interviews and I'm
Yep.
doing other things that's not writing. It's writing related, but it's not the writing. And I think for me, my wife's been yelling at me for years to not take on everything. Don't say yes to everything. And that's a it's still a struggle for me. Because when a really big author sends you a message and says, hey, we're doing this anthology and it pays pro rate, but we only need, and I'm like, oh, I can't, I just don't have the time for it. And again, I know I sound like an idiot for even saying that, but um that's kind of, that's where you want to be. You want to be able to pick and choose
Yeah.
those things. And I think that's, for me, that's part of the fun of this.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And like, yeah, it sounds fun. And I mean, being able to say, oh, look, I don't have the time and all that, that's wow. That's the reality of being a full-time author of your level. Yeah, you get invited to things, but you've got to say, well, you look at your board and go, I don't have the time.
No, that's the problem. My board over my shoulder has, I think, 14 open projects right now. So
Wow.
it's tough, and you want to. The best thing is for me is to get up and erase something and go, this is completed. This is done. So, and not adding anything, because my problem has always been, then I add 2 more projects to the board.
Uh-huh.
Oh good, this is done. What else can I write? And it's really hard. I mean, I have 3 different books that I'm working on just on my Patreon every month. So I need a new chapter of each of those 3 every month to put
Mm.
up. And so sometimes I'll get ahead on it and I'll write a couple of chapters, but then other times I'm like, oh, this is due tomorrow, and I didn't. I have like a chapter to write, and then I'll write 1,500 words or whatever that day to get that chapter done. And when you're adding other stuff, when you're on a deadline, and then you have 1,500 words of something else to write, it gets really tough. And to really write it out on a spreadsheet, on an Excel spreadsheet, and go, okay, if I write X number of words on these projects, I can get to the completion. Whereas, originally it was like, well, I got 3 months to write these 3 books. And then you don't
Yeah.
realize, oh, 2 months has gone by and I'm writing everything or I'm taking on new projects all the time. So it's really helped me. My wife definitely has helped me with spreadsheets, and I have 5 billion post-it notes all over my office, and it's just helping me. And the board, the visual, I need it in front of me, so that the board really helps to go, okay, I'm 30,000 words of 50K on this book.
Yep.
And then I look at my little spreadsheet and I go, well, I need to write 2,500 words a day without a break in order to complete this book. And you prioritize.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some stuff that's not due. I just June 15th, 30 D's 9 comes out, and August, December 15th, the 10th book will come out. But the way my schedule is right now, I'm actually writing that one now.
One
I'm
for
actually writing
December.
the 10th one for December to stay ahead,
Yeah.
and so that these rapid release books starting in January will be out on time, because you're talking those are 65,000 words and I got to write 3 of them.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So, this could be a stupid question, and if it is, feel free to say so. Where do you find the time to have fun?
So every day I'll write. I have a post-it note, and my goal is to get up at 9 o'clock and start working. 9 o'clock, coffee in me, and start working. And I've learned that if I just sit here all day and just do nothing, or I think I'm working, I'm not. So I'll write, and I've talked about this in the Mando Method podcast.
Yeah.
I'll write on my post-it note 9 to 10 email, 10 to 10:30 write number 1, 10:30 to 11:30 buffer, 11:30 to 12 write number 2, 12 to 1 lunch. And I just kind of span my day out, and I give myself extra time within that. So I'm only doing a 15-minute sprint at 10 o'clock, but I give it till 10:30.
Yeah.
So if I get done, I can kind of go back to some emails, or I can go get another cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, walk, whatever I got to do. And so I don't make it within 10 to 10:15. I just spread it out. And scheduling posts and stuff on Buffer takes me about a half an hour. I schedule an hour.
Yep.
So I'm constantly tweaking that schedule, and it depends on what day. Depends on, do I need to do a podcast interview? Do I need to cut interviews? Am I going to be on a podcast? And so I do all that, and that really helps. And a lot of the times, probably about twice a month, I get up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, wide awake, panicked. I got so much to do. Crawl out of bed, put on a coffee, and I'm working. And I'll do that, a couple times a month, where I feel like I have the stress of that. And then it's the constant fight. I mean, I was diagnosed years ago being bipolar. The no matter what meds I took, I was not creative. So it's gotten better as I've gotten older, but I still have days where I don't want to get out of bed. And then I have days where I'm up and I'm jumping around and I'm excited and I write 5,000 words, and I look forward to that part of the crazy. I look forward to that. I look forward to the peaks and not the valleys on those. So for me, it's that. But then it's also, you get to the point where I'll do interviews at 8 o'clock at night on Tuesdays. I do every other Tuesday. I do interviews. And but then there are those times where I just say, it's 5 o'clock. I'm done.
Yeah.
I work 9 to 5, and I work through lunch to finish something, to get this list over, and then I just kind of start writing my list for the next day, so I already know what I'm working on. Because for me, that's important, that balance, which I never had before. I was working full-time job, and I was squeezing in the writing and stuff. So now for me, it's, I'll take days off. I need a break. I need, we go to baseball games. Baseball season started again. So we go to games, and we'll go. My wife says, you haven't left the house in a week. Put some pants on. Let's go to dinner. Or we'll just go for trips. Or a big thing we do on the weekends, just for me to get out of the house, is I have a little free library. And so we go to other little free libraries here in Jacksonville, and I'll bring a box of books, and I'll have authors who have sent me signed books, and I'll put their books out, and I'll take books, and I do that a lot. I have a lot of my books out there. Chuck Buddha sent me a box of books, and I mean, we've been all over. We've been up and down the East Coast, and I put his books and my books in libraries and stuff. It's been fun. So there's still things there's still times that I just need a break. And I think my wife understands that too, because she knows if I'm starting to get, it's more than just I haven't been out of the house in a few days and I'm getting antsy. She knows the depression's kicking in, or she knows I'm really stressing, and she leaves me alone, and she'll hey, let's watch something. We'll binge watch. We love binge watching something. And so that's what we'll do. We'll do 2 or 3 nights, and usually by 11:30, 12 o'clock, I'm in bed. I'm going to bed, and I read for half an hour, and I fall asleep, and then you kind of start it over the next day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, and again, I feel like an idiot even complaining about this because I'm doing this is living the dream, is doing this, but it's not just you sit down and you just start writing and you got a story. There's those days are great, but those days are far and few in between.
Oh yeah.
And so that's fun. I mean, I've never had where I'm like the what is that Johnny Depp Secret Window, where you're just staring at a blank screen for days and days and then taking naps. Luckily, I've never had it that bad, and also having 14 or 15 projects to work on.
Yeah.
That also helps. And there's the the writer's block is I'd rather lay on the couch and watch documentaries all day than actually write. But I could write if I had to.
Yep. Okay. Wow. See, that's what I want. I no, that's kind of like that's the sort of thing I want. Where seems like a lot of authors I know, including myself, depression strikes us.
Yeah.
And I mean, ignoring that part, but just what you described about, like you've got your 9 to 5. It's basically like a proper job, treating that,
Right.
Like a proper day job kind of thing, which, I know some people are like, no way in hell. But for me, I kind of sit there going, oh yeah, this is what I want.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I used to, when I was working, I was a retail manager. I was working 80 hours a week, 6 days a week. And I hated every second of it.
Mm.
Now I'm working 7 days a week and sometimes 100 hours a week. And for the most part, I love it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to be creative. It's hard to stop on a dime and go, okay, now I have to do an interview.
Yeah.
And then now I have to audiobook narration, and now I got to look at cover art, and and you're doing all these, and then now I'm talking to another author who has a question about something, and so there's so much more involved. I mean, literally, my writing is on a good day is 3 15-minute sprints.
Mm.
That's it. That's in a 8 to 10 hour day. I'm writing for less than an hour. But all that other stuff, all the promotion, all the other stuff is needed. It's part of your job. It's part of it. But for me, the only way it works is if I'm literally going post-it note a day of these are the things I need to get done, and I cross them off as I go through. And if I don't get it, it goes on the next day.
Yeah.
And also you pace yourself, because there's like videos and there's different things, or you want to learn about changes for Amazon ads, or there's this new thing coming up and you want to learn about it. I have to schedule that.
Yeah.
When Slasher app, everybody started telling me about that, and I put it off for days, and I'm like, I'm old, I don't have time for another app. And then authors are saying, no, this is a really good app. It's all horror fans. And I said, you know what? And I literally had a schedule like 10:30 to 11:30 Slasher app. And then I was on and I played. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I was interacting with people and so, but I have to do that. I have to schedule that as part of the day. And you also have to realize that not every day is going to be, full of, I did all these great things. I mean, my dad will call me in the middle of something and want to talk about baseball. And I'm like, oh, you're killing me, because here's like 45 minutes of my day is gone.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly moving stuff up. And I'll work some late nights. My wife works. Sometimes she'll say, hey, I'm not coming home till 7, or I'm not leaving till 7. And I say, perfect. I'll get another sprint in, or more than likely I'm going to catch up on my emails, or I'm going to look at artwork. I'm going to do something constructive for the career.
Yeah.
I think that's the big part with it for me as well. Because I feel like I'm old, and I feel like I'm behind on everything. So I need it takes me the longest possible to understand an app or something. And my youngest is going to be 21, and she's like, okay, Dad, this is how you do it. And it drives me nuts, but I need that help, or it'll take me days to figure out. It took me such a long time to figure out Amazon ads, and then they change them all the time. And
it's the the nature of the beast to constantly be. And I mean, like, there's that new thing Amazon's brought out, the Amazon Vela, it's called
Vela. Yeah.
I mean, I know some authors who have already gone, yep, I'm going to serialize something. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And you know what? If I was in a year ago, I would have jumped on that. I would have said, you know what, this is great. I'm taking on every project imaginable. And I even scheduled, I did about 3-4 days after it came out, after they announced it, I scheduled and I just said, you know what, I'm going to research this. I'm going to see what it is. I'm going to talk to authors who are going to do it or not do it and find out why, because it might be something viable. Especially with my Patreon stuff, it might be something viable down the line. And I was like, I just don't have anything for it right now. I automatically get excited when a publisher says, "Hey, we're open to submissions," and I go, "Okay, what do I have?" But I'm at the point where, okay, either I have something that's sitting, or I don't, and I can't write something. I can't write you a novel or a novella this year to do that, and it still sucks on one hand, but then it still feels good that I'm not relying on chasing everything.
Yeah, it's a happy problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
I feel like such a dick saying things like that, but it's the truth.
No, but okay, you say you feel like a dick. Doesn't sound like a dick to me. You don't sound like it. Actually, you're giving me a very, 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 very great idea of what writing full time actually will involve, and especially to be prolific and to continue like like long running series like Dirty Deeds and all that. So it's that sort of thing where for me it's like, oh, this is like a masterclass. So don't feel like a dick. Don't.
All right, good.
Keep spouting these words of wisdom.
They're words. I don't know if it's wisdom. It's me babbling on and on.
No, it's wisdom. I've heard you babble on the Mando Method. This is not babbling.
Good.
I think Chuck brings out the babbling in you.
Yeah. Chuck takes us into the weeds a lot. Where I at some point I'm like, I don't even know what we were even talking about on this episode. We're into some weird things.
Oh yeah, and I have to admit, I love it. I love those moments. Listening to the podcast, and all of a sudden, Chuck will do this big long thing, and all of a sudden you'll just sit there and go, "How the hell did we get here?" Those are like my favorite moments.
Yeah. We a lot of times we record 2 episodes every other Monday. Usually is what we do. And the first episode, usually we talk on text almost every day, but we haven't talked. So a lot of times we'll jump on, but I hit record as soon as we go on.
Yep.
So a lot of episodes you'll hear us actually talking about something, and then Chuck's like, "Why are you recording? You're already recording." And then a lot of times I'm like, make a note, please delete, because we've just ripped on somebody or something, or we just said something you're not supposed to say, because that's how we are. And but it's a lot of fun because we it's almost like a warm-up beforehand.
Yeah.
We're talking about other stuff. We're talking about for the longest time Chuck didn't want to talk about it, that he moved. And so we didn't talk about that. And then I would joke around and I would like name random how is it living in Brazil, and how is it living in Cleveland, and all these different things. And so we kind of know what's off limits. He knows the stuff. He knows the personal stuff from me, and I know the personal stuff from him. We don't bring those up, but we'll have a conversation about stuff, and then it gets to that point where we know we're leading in to actually starting the show. We might have talked for 5 or 10 or sometimes a half an hour, and we're like, hey, maybe we should start recording this thing. So that's, for me, that's the fun of it's the Mando Method. I learn a lot. I learned a lot from him. I learn a lot from the articles we bring in, or we're doing roundtable guests now. As we're recording this, we recorded last night with actually Drew from Godless.
Oh, cool.
And Damon from Slasher. We had the 2 of them on.
Ooh.
And we learned so much, and you learn so much from these guys of how they're helping the horror community and all this. And it was just a great interview. But for me, I'm sitting there letting those 2 talk. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. This is great. And, I always say I do my podcast selfishly because I want to learn, because if, here's my thing. If you get something out of it, that's awesome. But I don't care. as long as I'm getting something out of it, I'm going to keep going,
Yeah.
And so that's me and Chuck. That's kind of how we approach these episodes.
No, I get that. I get that because, that as I said to you, for me is just a chance to sit down to authors I'm fans of and just pick their brains about certain things. So
Yeah.
totally get that. Oh, this is selfish as all hell.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If anybody says they're doing podcasts like this because for whatever your reason is, you're a liar. You're doing it for yourself, and that's what that's good. That's what we should be doing this for.
Yeah.
We want to learn. We want to learn the tricks, the secrets. I want to know what didn't work for you, and I always tell what didn't work for me. And there's a lot of stuff that I've done in my career that have sabotaged things or put me back for a long time. And I'm glad that I went through those things. I'm glad that I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Because then it makes it better when you get to the end, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I finally figured out Amazon ads. Hold on, I've done it wrong. I've spent, there was months where I spent $200-300 and had nothing back on it.
Jeez.
And my wife kept saying, "You're doing something wrong. Figure out what you're doing wrong." And her thing is, you can have a budget of $500 a month on advertising, but spend it so you're at least breaking even on it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't spend $500 and then you have no money at the end, and you have no sales. That doesn't make any sense. So that's the ongoing for me, the trial. Every day there's that hour blocked off for whether it's BookBub or whether it's free Booksy or any of the others that that $10, $20, $50 advertising. I have my budget every month. Some months I go over, some months I go under, and it's for me. It's putting the money I'm making every month back in. It's trying new things, and to build that and to make that money. I love what Dan's doing. I love what Wayne's doing, but I'm human, man. There's a jealousy part there too. I mean, I'm 100% glad it's them, but I want to be there with them. I want to be standing between the two of them, saying I'm making as much money as you're making, and I'm doing the things that you're doing. I mean, and it's ridiculous how much those two work at it. And so I'm trying to get it in my head that, what? Dan has a full-time job. Dan has a family. He's got all the problems that everybody else has, but there's no excuses there. I mean, the guy's making a ton of money. The guy's selling a ton of books. The guy's doing what he loves, and he's writing at a crazy, crazy pace at such a high level that it in my depressive states, I go, I'm never going to reach this. I'm never going to do this. I might as well just give up now. It's imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That it's never going to happen. And that's the challenge, I think, for us as authors. Try to, you figure out what the bucket list items are. You figure out what the next goal is.
Yep.
My goal for the longest time was a hardcover, limited edition Thunderstorm book. And I mean, that was the top for years. And when that came out, that was like, scratch that off the list, but let's add something to this list.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because it's that those goals is what drives you. It's what's pushing you on. And I mean, my goals have changed so much, in the couple of years I've been publishing and everything, and learning from, the Mando Method, learning from the Horror Show Brian Keane podcast, and just from everything. And it used to be I want to be Stephen King. It used to be that. It used to be I want to make all the money. 2018 version of me was an arrogant asshole.
Well, I think what also comes with us being writers, the depression. We're all, I mean, I'm sure there are people that aren't, but I haven't met them yet. I mean, there's people that let's be honest, a lot of us, there's that mindset, but also there's an ego, I think, on the other side of that. We all have an ego. You put a lot of horror authors in the same room, or any authors, and there's going to be that kind of swagger and arrogance. And I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as you're not a dick to somebody. Going to Scares That Care every year, and you see some of these personalities, these big personalities in the room with you. And for me, it's always a lot of fun because I'm like, sometimes I'm like, man, I hope I'm not that big of a jerk. But at other times I'm like, he or she deserves it. They've paid their dues.
Yep.
They've written phenomenal books. They're great authors, and you wait for what's coming next for them to top these big books. And I think that's also has to be part of it. You know, my wife asked me one time. She said, would you like the fame or the money? And I said yes.
Oh, that's good.
You know, because unfortunately they're equally as important to me
Yep.
because of the ego and because of obviously for the finances and everything.
Mm.
But those, like you said, those goals have changed. I've hit certain plateaus. I've I wanted to have X number of dollars. I wanted to have an advance. That was a big thing. One of my first bucket listings. Well, I got that. Well, I wanted an advance that could pay my bills for 6 months. Well, I got that. So you keep moving up that ladder. Those rungs will never go away. I would love to have where, I get $1 million advance. Well, it's never going to happen, but you work up to those types of things. You work up to, here's my publishers I would love to work with.
Uh-huh.
Here's writers I would love to co-write with. I'd love to be recognized as a grandmaster at a horror convention. I'd love, there's all these things. I would love for one of my books to be made into a comic book. I would love for one of my books to be made into a movie. And there's all these things, and they all kind of change because I think I have like 6 of my stories right now that companies have flyers on to make a TV or a movie. But it's been years on a couple of them. They just pay me, a little bit of money every month. And it's funny because I'm like, if I could do 5 or 6 more of those, I could pretty much just live off of that money. Never have to write again,
That's a nice goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's strange. Like, I used to ask this question, which was, what is literary, what was it? I got my list of questions here I used to ask. It was along the lines of, what is literary success for you? And I got answers to them. When I interviewed Lee Murray, I asked her, and she just said, I just want to be recognized as being kind, a kind author who helps people. And,
right.
I kind of went, well, anyone else who I ask that question to, doesn't matter what they say, it's, they're going to come across as an asshole after that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's no topping that one. That is a good answer.
Yeah, hell yeah. But she's like you, she's mentoring a bunch of people. She's taking on so many things. She's helping people, and she's losing time to do her own writing.
Yeah. I am a big believer in karma. I'm a big believer that whatever you put out there, you get back. And if you act like a jerk, people treat you like a jerk, and it's that arrogance and everything. And we're all human. I slip every now and then, but I learned years ago from Jay Conrath, from Scott Nicholson, those 2 guys I mentioned in every interview. They probably don't even remember me at this point, but in the beginning, the mid 2000s, I was asking those 2 a million questions, dumb questions. I mean, dumber than some of your questions. I mean, that's how bad. And they were like, they were generous with their time, and they helped. And they both more or less said, when I said, what can I do to pay you back? And they said, pay it forward.
Yep.
Help other people. You're going to be in a position in your career at some point to help other people. And I always remember that. And I always tell people that. And it's always great when I've talked to somebody for a couple of years and I've mentored them, or I've helped them, or I've answered their questions on and on. And then they're starting to do it. They're starting to use their knowledge, and not in an arrogant, I know everything now, but in an actual, hey, I know what you're going through because I went through this and I learned from this, and this. And so for me, that's always great. The new kids coming up, the new guys, because I wasted a lot of years of not writing or not being in the community. Like a lot of people will go, well, how long have you been doing this? So you've been doing this 10 years? I said, no, I've been doing this for over 30 years. nobody knew who the hell I was the first 20.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't out there. I wasn't doing this. I came up before Brian Keene and all those guys. I mean, I remember reading Brian's stories in zines in the 90s. I remember him and Mary and Jeff. I remember all them reading their stories and not knowing who they are, but knowing that I really liked their work.
Yeah.
But not being online, not being internet savvy and being on the message boards and all that with those guys. I missed out on all of that. So even though I'm as old as a lot of them, I'm still as I was still considered for a long time one of the new breed of authors coming up.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's not great for the ego. To be honest, to go, man. I've written more words than a lot of you, but you guys had leisure books. You guys had some of the bigger small presses. You guys had these releases, and I had a bunch of short stories released at that point.
Oh yeah, but I mean, that I get that because I wasn't that big in the the community either. Now I'm not I'm not going to compare it. That's the
Yeah.
But when I started to set up this, I started sending messages to people and talking and all that, and I started doing it last year a little bit as well. And now there are certain I get tagged in these posts like, oh yeah, if you want people helping out the indie horror community, and there I am. I'm just sitting there going, what?
Yeah.
Same as when the other last week I recorded a panel for StokerCon with
cool.
it was Lee Murray. She put it all together, and it was about podcasts and vlogs and all that. Right. And she sent me the message for it, and she said, look, I'm doing this, and I got authorization to include you, and I'm just there going,
yeah.
Me? I'm a dick from Australia. It's just one of those
things. No, Dick from Australia. You're thinking of Aaron Dries. No, I'm just kidding. I love Aaron. My wife. Oh my God, my wife loves him.
Well, here's the funny thing. I've spoken to him very, very briefly through Facebook, and we're from the same hometown. We're from the same. Yeah, because he made a post about what's his name? An author, the guy who wrote Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
It's something Irvin. He made a comment about him and a couple of things, and he talked about the play and the movie Death Trap that had Michael Caine and Christopher Reeve in it. And I made a comment about in Newcastle, my hometown, and he goes, "I'm from there," and and I was like, "Oh, damn, it's a small world."
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I met him at Nikon years ago, and he just starts talking to you. I mean, he knows everybody, and he was just great stories and just a lot of fun. And we were at Scares. I think it was like within 2 weeks, and my wife met him, and she just loved the accent. She just loved the energy in him, and they both have a shared love for the Golden Girls, which is fun. So anytime my wife posts anything about the Golden Girls, she tags them in it, and they go back and forth, which I think is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and that's what it is. It is kind of like setting up not setting it up on purpose, but you do form those friendship, those bonds with certain people, and that becomes your tribe. Like you've got your little. I don't want to say crew, but you kind of do with Chuck, JC, Tim, all of those guys.
Yeah, Frank Adler. Well, when I say, oh, my phone will blow up, and my wife will say, well, who's that? The boys? And I say, yeah, because that's what these are the people that I talk to on a constant basis, and it's never anything. Most of the time, I'm like, yeah, you don't even want to see, you don't want to see pictures of drunk Chuck right now. And we post stuff that's inappropriate, that's really ripping each other apart, that's really just, not politically correct sometimes. I mean, nothing ever mean or anything, but just we bust each other's chops, and everything is fair game.
Yeah.
If you do something dumb, 4 other guys are going to rip you on it. I mean, that's just a given. And we appreciate that. We appreciate that no matter what bad things are happening, somebody's stressed about their job, and we're we all jump on it. The first person to say, well, it's because you suck at your job or something, and so, but you need that
Yeah,
gallows humor and that fun. And like you said, it's your tribe.
yeah,
It's certain people that, and some guys you've never met in person, some people you've never met, and you're like, you know what, this person I would jump in front of a bullet for you, because you understand me, you understand what I'm going through, and you're
yep.
a creative person as well.
Oh yeah, and it's really big and important, especially in a creative thing. Like my dad's a magician, and I remember as a kid
Oh
going with,
wow.
oh yeah, oh yeah, um, and I remember as a kid going to magic conventions with him, and the like the monthly meeting of the magicians in the area and all that, and he knew all of them and all of them knew him, but he had about there was 12. There was 12 that he just that was his tribe, and I always
Right.
called them the Dirty Dozen.
Hmm.
And then, over the years they left and all that, and it got down to 6. So, one day, Dad said, "Oh, Richard, I'm going down to Sydney to see, the Dirty 6.5."
So what
But
kind of magic did he do?
he's close up magic, and he still does it. He did about 30 years as a restaurant magician.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he did Friday and Saturday, going to table, and cards, cups and balls, rope tricks, all that sort of stuff. And he's had tricks released internationally. He's done lectures and all this sort of stuff. He's in the magic community. He's relatively well known.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Oh
It's
yeah,
funny because I love that stuff. And growing up, my dad, like, none of us did it, but my dad would always explain how it was done, even if you had no idea.
mm.
You know, which I always thought was funny. We always still joke about that. But my wife she gets freaked out by it. She's
Really?
gonna kill me if she ever listens. She just does not like magic. Like, she does not. And like, we're watching something, and there's like a show that's premiering, three friends that do magic, and they do different things. And she's like, I don't like that, because she doesn't know what's going on. And I'm like, I'm fascinated by it. I love it because I don't know what's going on. I'm never gonna be able to figure these things out. And it's fun. But she's like, I won't watch it. You watch that by yourself. I think it's funny.
That's funny because like everyone, when they find out my dad's a magician, they instantly say, "Oh, did he? Do you know how he does his tricks and all that?" And yeah, he would practice them on me, my brother and sister. He'd practice on them, and my brother and sister, they're like, "Yeah, we don't care." I always loved it, and I've seen him perform, and even when I watch him perform now, I'm still amazed, even though I know what's happening and how it's
Right, yeah,
happening. I'm still
yeah.
amazed by it because of him, just the way
Right,
his
yeah.
mannerisms. And I mean, I get that with not understanding how things are done, and it kind of is a little freaky. I get that, but what we do is a form of real magic. What we like writing, creating something out of nothing like this.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you
that's
get a lot of people with the arrogance of that they think when I retire, I'm going to write a book. You get that all the time. And I don't let it bother me as much as it used to. But then you get people who genuinely are amazed by what we're doing. Like, how did you create 50,000 words out of nothing? And it makes sense. And you come up with this stuff. Those comments you appreciate,
oh yeah,
because that's what you're doing. It's kind of like when you go into a restaurant or whatever, and the food is just amazing, and you're like, all right, well, yeah, this is a seafood platter that you can get in other places, but this is delicious. It's this one.
yep.
This person created this specific one. It's like anybody can technically write a book, but to write a book that makes sense, that sells, that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, all those other things. I mean, that's the amazing part. And I'll read authors. I read authors all the time, and I go, I again, imposter syndrome. I am never going to be this good.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am never going to be. I'm never going to be able to write a book like this. And sometimes there's books that are so surprising. Did you read the one that really still gets me is Tender as the Flesh?
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. And that's not really a book that I normally read. I'm really not a fan of that really raw. I'm not a splatterpunk fan. I'm not really a slasher, movie
Yeah,
fan, all that. I like quiet horror, but this one was just so well written, and it was so in your face and clinical with the basically with cannibalism,
yeah,
and it was it's one of those books that like still stays with me. I'm like, I I don't think I could ever write a book like this. I don't think I have the skills that this person has to
yeah.
write a book like this.
I know. Totally agree. Totally agree with all that because I've read books and I'm like, son of a bitch, how'd they do that? You know.
Yeah.
And then the imposter syndrome comes up and it's like, you're never going to be that good. And that used to affect me. You know, man, I'm going to sound like a dick now saying this. But the thing that I kind of have to keep in my head is it doesn't matter. That's them.
Yeah.
I can only be as good as I can be. I cannot imitate, or I cannot do anything. I can't write an Armand Rosamilia book because I'm not.
Right.
You know.
So when you first started writing, who did you copy? Like, who was I wrote Dean Koontz, really bad Dean Koontz stories.
Well, the thing for me was I spent about 10, 15 years writing movie scripts because I wanted to be the Australian version of Martin Scorsese and Kevin Smith put together.
Right.
Oh yeah. And so that's where that was my, that was my training ground on how to tell a story because the rules of script writing are so strict and so tough,
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Mexico, I was like, well, I want to do something with all these stories. And, some friends said you could self-publish. So I started looking into it. And then I was listening to the podcast, The Dead Robot Society, with Paul Cooley. And on that particular episode was Jake Bible. And, both of them were talking about Severed Press. I was like, okay. And I had written just a stock standard spy thriller that was basically a female James Bond. It was a mixture of female James Bond, The Third Man, set in Cuba. And I had sent it to some publishers and they said, no, thank you very much. I'm like, okay, trying to figure out why they didn't want it. And, I realized it was missing that special secret sauce, and I'm listening to this podcast and they're talking about Severed Press and I look up Severed Press. And I'm like, oh, wow. I love the covers. I love the titles. Yeah. This is, my jam. And in Mexico, in Mexico City, they've got this intricate subway system. And at peak hour traffic, the laws of physics get ignored. Trying to get squeezed in, you're getting shoved into, literally, you're being melded into a blob kind of thing. And when you get off at certain stations, you've got to do this shuffle to get up and out of the subway. I call it a zombie shuffle. And one day I'm in there doing this shuffle and it just hit me. Ooh, zombies. And so I wrote it and submitted it to Seven, and they said, yeah, we'll take it. And at the same time, I was really, I was listening to Writing in Suburbia. I started listening to the Mando Method, and I kind of went, oh man, Jake Bible at the time, he'd put out, like 50 books in like, a couple of years. I was just like, that I'm going to beat him. I'm going to be that, that was that was it. I was going to, I was going to be, I was going to be like Jake Bible. Obviously it didn't happen. and I was a little disappointed in myself. And I told Jake this when I had him on, and he says, no, if don't be like anyone. You just be you. You be the best version of yourself when it comes to this, because there's no one else with your voice, and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay. And that's why I say, that, back in 2018, when I started all this, I was arrogant as all hell.
Yeah. Well, but again, it's the ego. You need that. You need to, our public personas are a lot different from our private ones.
Oh yeah.
And then that's not to say we're not genuine, but I'm a completely different person when I'm at home. And so when I'm at home, I'm relatively quiet. Like, we have people over, I'll sit in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
We had my wife's family came over for a cookout a couple of weeks ago, and I sit in the corner and I talk. People come up to me and I talk to people, but I'm not in the middle of the room. But when I'm at a book convention, when I'm at Scares That Care or whatever, I'm out in the aisle. Then I become, the joke is then I become Mando.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm out there and I'm talking to people and I'm doing the shtick and, shaking hands and kissing babies and doing all that and just having a great time. And I mean, I enjoy it, but getting in the car after a 3-day, 4-day weekend like that, driving from Virginia to Florida is 15 hours. I'm quiet.
Mm.
I'm exhausted. Like my wife learned that once I'm done with a book signing, I need as much time as I was there. I need that time in a quiet space. I need to go read. I need to take a nap. I need to just sit and stare. I'm just it drains me because it's an extension of me that I don't think I can sustain. And again, it's not me being fake. It's not me not being who I really am, but it's just that next level
Yep. Yeah.
of me. And so I think that's part of the problem. I mean, you turn it on when me and Chuck are just sitting, for half an hour, just talking about how's life, how's the kids, how's work treating you, that kind of thing. And then you just, and then it's like, I literally will just sometimes, and you can hear it, I'll literally go, and welcome to the Mando Method podcast. And you turn it on and you just kind of jump in and you do that, the radio voice. I was in radio for a few years there. So it was definitely that, again, it was Mando, it was that persona.
Yep.
It was that. And I think you have to, I think it's good to separate that. I think it's good. I watch a lot of, I was a big wrestling fan growing up. I don't watch it as much, but we were watching, A&E has a bunch of documentaries now. And what's funny is my wife obviously never watched wrestling. So she knows who Hulk Hogan is, but she doesn't know. And Rowdy Roddy Piper, the biography, we watched that last night, and she just had heard his name before, but she just, he's one of the good guys. And I'm like, no, he was the greatest bad guy of all time, And watching that, and it's funny because it's the same thing, like being a writer. It's like, you're an entertainer, and when he was Rowdy Roddy Piper, it was that persona, it was that all of that. And then when he was home, he was Rod Toombs, and he was just a normal dad, and he was a normal husband, and he was quiet, and so it's that definite separation. And then what happens a lot is, especially musicians, especially entertainers, you start to become that persona. You start to become Randy Macho Man Savage all the time instead of Randy Poffo, kind of thing. And, you see that with musicians a lot too, guys that I knew from way back, because I managed bands back in the 90s, and guys that were really cool, and then they became their stage personas, and then they were that arrogant jerk, off the stage as well. And you see that sometimes with, you see that sometimes with authors, not even just horror authors, but a lot of other authors. And then there's guys that no matter how much money you meet people and you realize, oh my God, this guy's worth millions of dollars, but he's not acting like it. He's wearing a t-shirt and a pair of faded jeans like you are.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just, it's the exact same thing with my dad with the magic. When he's performing, there's that definite persona.
Yeah.
And once and honest, and the funny thing is, for dad, his persona, literally, it's just him just toned up a little bit.
Right. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, that's
and that's the thing. And I mean, I'm still figuring out my persona. Like if you watch it, if anyone sat down and watched all the interviews to date, the only difference is how excited I am for who I'm talking to, or how it, also depending, am I having a good day when I record? Is it, did I get a night's sleep? For example, last night I hung out with a friend last night and I got drunk, so I woke up this morning going, I've got the interview with Armand. No, I'm not going to cancel. I'm not going to reschedule.
If you had told me, I would have started drinking this morning.
Well, that's it was the same thing with with JC. I said, if you want to drink when we're having, you want to have a drink while we're recording, JC, go for it. And he just went, okay.
You don't have to push that boy.
Yeah.
He and I do a fun, like a YouTube movie thing together, because he is like, you can ask him any question about any horror movie.
Oh yeah.
and JC knows it. I mean, he is deep into it. And I don't watch horror movies. I haven't watched horror movies in years. So it started as like a kind of a joke. My wife, for work, she goes to Atlanta about once a month. And if it's just a fly up and fly back during the day, I'll stay home. And a lot of times I'll order a pizza and I'll watch whatever's on TV. And I always watch stuff that I know she's not going to watch, and she won't watch sci-fi. She won't watch horror stuff or whatever. And I don't remember. I think I watched one of the Lighthouse movies. Is how it started. And I sent JC a message. I said, "Hey, this is pretty good. I watched this." He's like, "Oh no, you got to watch this, this, and this as well." So I watched 4 Lighthouse movies, and then I said to him, "Hey, let's just shoot a YouTube video for fun." And we did it, and we got a ton of people who watched it and a lot of comments, and it was just because I'm not really a horror movie fan. And so it was fun. And then he immediately went, "Okay, here's 4 more movies. These ones are set in water. Okay, let's do that." And then what's funny is tomorrow my wife goes to Atlanta for the day. And I sent JC a message. I said, "Come up with another theme." And I mean, it was like he was waiting. It was like my text was like, "These boom, 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 boom. These 4 movies we're watching. We're gonna whenever you want to record." And it's not a weekly. It's not even a monthly. It's just whenever we want to record for fun. And for me, it's hysterical because he'll come up with this stuff, everything about this movie, and I love it because I'm the dumb one who's sitting there going, "Whoa, that was pretty cool." And we watched it's called Underwater, I think it was the one with Kristen Stewart.
Yep.
And my comment was basically, I wish she had an ass because she was in her underwear the whole time. That would have been great to watch her walking around in panties and a bra the whole. And he's giving you the cinematographer, and he's giving you what it's based on and all this other. It's great. I mean, it's just such a fun thing to do with JC. JC is like the movie guy, so we always bust his chops about that.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm a movie guy too. I went to film school. That's why I started writing scripts. So
yeah, he's fun. He's also a lot younger than me, so we're both heavy metal fans, but I'm very old school. And I always love when he sends a message and goes, "Oh, check out this band. They sound just like Exodus." And I'm like, "Nah, I'll just listen to Exodus."
Yeah, that's the thing, like, you've got your Iron Maiden shirt, and behind you I can see the Misfits.
Oh yeah. I have a bunch of different, the Slayer and I have all my serial killer ones is all my music ones. So I have all the Funko Pops. I have the Iron Maiden, and I have the Motley Crue, and just anything music that they've put out. It's a huge thing for me. This is one of the few times during the day that music is not blasting in my office, is when I'm actually recording something.
Oh, you could put on Mando's greatest hits. I'm fine with that. And so I don't know if it's really if you've talked about that with Chuck before. I don't know. You might have, because I was relatively late to coming to the Mando party. So when you're writing, it's just heavy metal.
A lot of times, yeah. A lot of times it's kind of the mood or what I'm writing. I have to have noise. There has to be something in the background.
Yep.
And even if it's and it's usually Spotify. I mean, it's usually I'll be in a mood. I'll be in a mood for something, but not always heavy metal. I mean, heavy metal is obviously huge for me.
Yep.
A lot of the 80s and into the 90s, some of the 90s stuff. But then it's funny because then I get my Spotify. Every year Spotify sends you a thing and says, "Here's your top bands." And I think the 2 years running was Bowling for Soup was my number 1 band, and Cheap Trick was my second band. So nice. I'm kind of all over the place with music, and everybody laughs when I say Bowling for Soup, and they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "They're just great. They're just catchy, and I've heard their songs a billion times, so I can't listen to anything new because then it takes me out." But I've listened to Iron Maiden since I was 12. I mean, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast was the reason that I started listening to heavy metal.
Right.
So I've heard those songs a billion times, so it's just background music. And even if I'm writing, I might even be singing along to it because that part of the brain is. But the creative part is still. I'm still working. I'm still writing. So, but I'll have certain things, especially when I was doing like the zombie books. There were certain bands heavier bands
Yep.
that I would be listening to Cannibal Corpse and Slayer and or a lot of black metal back then. So, which is funny because Chuck listens to black metal when he writes with his headphones on at full blast to blow out his ears.
Okay, I kind of find it hard to imagine Chuck sitting there just rocking out to black metal.
It's funny when he would come here, um, he's come a couple times. Him and Jay Wilburn came down and spent like a week with us, and uh, I think the last time it was just him. It wasn't Jay. And I said, "Hey, I got to listen to music," and he's like, "Put on black metal. Doesn't matter what. Just put on, something." So we were putting on, and it's just I'm in my office and I'm watching him in the dining room, and he's writing, but he's kind of like he's just kind of moving slow, and it's just like you can tell it's just there, it's just like pounding in his head, which is great. And we listened to a lot of black metal that weekend.
so Chuck, so JC's the movie guy, Chuck's the the death metal and black metal guy.
Yeah.
And you're just heavy metal.
yeah, I'm kind of in there, which is funny because me and Chuck are 2 days apart in age, and we both grew up in Jersey, and so we've been to a lot of the same concerts. We just didn't know each other. Same with Frank Edler. Frank's younger than us, but he literally went to a lot of the same concerts and saw a lot of the local bands that if I name a band, 99% of the world has no idea who they are, but those guys are like, "Oh my God, I saw them opening for Skid Row in '87 or something," So that's always a lot of fun to do that. I mean, when me and Frank Edler did the Shocker trilogy, it's a lot of that '80s Jersey bands that if you don't know who they are, you think we made up a bunch of band names and stuff. But I mean, that's for us, that's that's fun. And like if stuff comes up like the Chris Holmes from Wasp, the documentary Mean Man. I think it's on Hulu, and I immediately sent them a message that you guys see this yet? And Frank was like, "Oh my God, I got to watch this!" So we like do that all the time, or a new book about hair metal from the '80s comes out, or whatever, and we immediately tell each other about these things coming up because it's still. My wife laughs. She was born down here. She's like a country music fan, which I am not, and so there's certain things like she'll listen to the '80s hair metal stuff. But she was, she's 5 years younger than me. She was younger. So when I'm 18, she's like 13. God only knows what she's listening to then. But so it's a lot of fun that she'll come in sometimes for work, and I'm in the zone. I have two computers. I have just a writing computer on my desk, so I'm turned that way, and I get the music. Blasted, and I'm listening. She comes in, and she'll come in now, and she'll just kind of bang on the door. In the doorway because I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm listening to some, crazy punk thing from, FU every 2 seconds or whatever. And she's like, all right, no, I can't listen to that. You gotta turn that off.
And this could be another stupid question. So,
you've asked a lot of stupid
questions. Yeah. I'm thinking of changing the name of the show just to the Stupid Hour. So you said that your wife, she handles the business side of it. That's got to take a lot of pressure off you, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we first met, so we met in December 2012, and I was I was right in the middle of doing a bunch of those. I wrote a bunch of either ghost wrote or wrote stuff for a movie company. And they gave me a ton of money. Miami Spy Games was the first thing I did with them, which was supposed to be it was going to eventually be a TV show, and it just didn't work out like everything else. But I had written like I think it was like a dozen serialized things, so it would be like a 12 episode season.
Yeah.
And they paid me enough to basically pay all my credit cards and pay all my bills for like 6 months.
Nice.
And then I started doing other ones. So when we started dating, I was full-time at that point. I had been full-time for maybe 4 or 5 months. And she, she asked me, she says, well, how many words do you write? And I said, I don't know, whatever I write, I just write that day. Well, how much money do you make? And I'm like, I paid my bills for 6 months. And she was like, but don't you know like, how much do you make on Amazon? And I was like, I don't know. They give you a report,
Mhm.
money drops into my PayPal or my bank account kind of thing. And I have like, you know, I contracts with small presses, and then sometimes I get paid ahead, or sometimes it's a royalty thing. I don't know. So I had no idea, literally had no idea how much money was coming in and out. And so she does, she's a commercial property manager. So she does that numbers for a living. And once we got serious and we got engaged and everything, she started helping me with that. And the big thing for me was helping me do my daily word counts. Because then when I started doing it, I realized, wow, I'm writing 4,000 words today and I don't write anything for 3 days. And
Yeah.
it's just all over the place. So it really, it gave me the point where I said, you know what, I got to be serious about this. And then not to go, oh man, I made $300 on Amazon. And I had a really bad month. And she's like, but you got paid $300 for these two anthologies, and this publisher gave you $500, and we went and sold books, and you made 1,000. So it's like that $300 I thought I made was like, oh well, that's $1,300 I made this month,
Yeah.
or something like that. So it helped me to keep track. I keep track of the money on the spreadsheet, but she's the one who says, okay, Amazon dropped this, and then Amazon dropped this, and then Kindle Press gave you this, and Crystal Lake, your royalties, or Devil Dog Press, here's your royalties, or
Yeah.
Severed, here's your royalties. And when you're dealing with like a dozen different presses that are giving you quarterly royalties and they all drop in different months, that all adds up. When you get a nice advance from a company, I mean, that all adds up. So that's kind of where it helped me, because it took the pressure off of having to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it also took the pressure of thinking, I'm not making any money doing this. I'm living a lie. I'm not able to pay the bills. Now, that being said, she has a great career. She's been at her job 13, 14 years. So I always say, if I don't make another dime, we're still going to live quite comfortably.
Yeah.
And I put the pressure on myself to do this. So I'm always like, I need to, maybe I should write whatever. And she's like, no, stay where you are, do what you're doing. And we have money. And it's like sink every dime back into it,
Mhm.
because at some point you're going to make that money. At some point that book is going to hit and take you to that next level and that next level. And she says, you got to remember where you were sales wise when we first met to where you are now, because we actually went back kind of retro 2 years of how much money I was making, which was nothing when I was still writing full time, to where I am now. And every year it's literally, I've gone up 10 or 15% at a nice steady climb. And whereas I'm making more money now than I did working 80 hours a week at a retail management job. So for me, it's kind of justification on it, but then there's none of that pressure
Yeah.
of that, because we don't I'm not saying we don't need the money, but we're my money's going in the bank. My money buys 500 Funko Pops. My money goes on all our trips and does all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I write a lot of stuff. I mean, we get a big chunk of that money back for taxes every year as well. So it's a business. Everything's created. I just say, what do I need to sign, and what do I need to do, and we kind of move on from there. I hand her my contracts and say, read this.
Yeah.
And she understands them better than I'd ever understand them. She'll go, well, this one doesn't have this clause, or this one doesn't have a time limit, or this one doesn't address audiobooks or whatever.
Mhm.
So that also helps. It's like basically having a manager for my financial, all this, for my literary estate kind of thing.
Damn. That's like, you're lucky.
It's super, super lucky. Like I said, she's totally supportive. She's been to almost every book signing. When we do the Beers and Fears every year, we used to do every year. Me, Tim, Chuck, and Frank, and then we'd had Dan Padavona. We've had Todd Kiesling. We've had Summer Cannon. We've had J.C. Walsh. Summer did her very first book signing with us, and J.C. Walsh did his very first book signing with us. And we've had other authors that have come through as well. But she handles all the money for us. So all we're doing is drinking beer and walking around talking to people. And every now and then she'll go, Chuck, come over here and sign this book for Mr. Bob.
Yeah.
And then he signs to Bob, and then we move on. At the end of the night, she splits out all the money. She shows us her sheet, and she pays everybody out from that. And we've done a ton of signings like that, which is great because I don't have to worry about the money. I don't have to worry about swiping cards and doing all that stuff. I'm literally just out there, just kissing babies and shaking hands, kind of thing, which is great.
Yeah. Well, see that every time you when you used to do the beer and food tours and hearing the Mando Method episodes about that, that was a bucket list item for me, was to do that, to be invited along to do that. And when I think it was one episode you guys said, yeah, we're not doing them anymore. Part of me was like, sons of bitches.
Yeah. Well, COVID screwed us up a lot, obviously, and I will tell you, I will give you the exclusive here. Ooh. We are thinking about doing one in New Jersey, maybe by the end of this year.
Okay.
But just a one signing with a bunch of authors, our core group, and then a bunch of other authors.
Yep.
And then at some point, getting back to doing them and doing the tour and everything. Mm-hmm. But we're still we basically need an outdoor venue, which we have. One of the breweries that we've done every year, they're interested. We're just trying to find a date for it and all that. So it's still in the early stages of doing, because I love doing stuff like that. I love doing being around. I love being around other people and selling books and drinking beer and different things like that.
Oh yeah, it's I mean, like there's a lot of pain and a lot of heartache in doing this, but when you get to do things like that, or even just this, it's like totally worth it. Wouldn't want to do anything else.
Exactly. Like we're gonna do the writers retreat this year. We're gonna do that. It'll be very small. It'll be just a handful of people. But my goal is to expand that and do MondoCon every year and do 6 or a dozen authors or whatever. One of the things we're looking at actively, me and my wife, is buying land right now and building basically a compound, where we would have our house, and we would have a couple of other smaller houses on the property, and a pond and a lot of land, and to have a dozen writers over. And we do 2 or 3 days of let's do some writing, and then at night let's do some eating and drinking, and let's just our own little convention, our own little
nice.
Our own little thing. So that's one of the goals as well, because for me it's being able to talk shop with everybody. It's being able to bring up different subjects and have people, like-minded people. I mean, I love people that come here. Alex from Iowa, Alexander C. Bailey. He came and stayed with us last year for like 2 weeks. And, he joked, but I put him through Rosamilia boot camp. We stop with the naps, sit down and write, this is the schedule. This is what we're doing.
Yep.
And it was a lot of fun. And he asked a ton of questions. And for me, it got me pumped up. It got me excited to write again, because I had another writer in the house, and we were doing it. We were working together and stuff.
Yeah. And you feed off that energy.
Yeah. And that I think, people forget that we're 99% of the time we're sitting in our offices or table or wherever by ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're just spewing out this stuff that's hopefully going to sell. So whenever I get a chance to sit and talk with other writers or do book signings or conventions and all this stuff, which we really haven't had, then it's fun. This is great, the one-on-one doing this, but for me it's even cooler when you're sitting here.
Yeah.
When we're sitting on the couch, we're sharing a meal and maybe a beer or a bourbon, and we're able to talk until one of us falls asleep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely. I mean, like when I spoke, JC, it was not recorded. We just did a video call a couple of weeks ago, and it was that sort of thing. We were just talking, catching up, and then we started talking shop and everything. And then, next thing he's gone, oh shit, is that the time? And he's like, sorry. And that's the great thing. And, being able to do this and then, put it out there for everyone to watch. And, I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't know about how you work your days, so getting all that, That's the
Yeah.
stuff that for me, it's like, yep, made it totally worthwhile.
Well, good.
And so there's a question I ask everyone, and I was a little hesitant to ask you because you don't just solely write horror, but the question is, what makes horror fun for you to write?
I think with anything, it's the characters. It's creating the character. So for me, I look at movies, I look at books, I look at entertainment the same way. If the characters are great, and that means like I love them or I hate them, or there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
And the plot is weak or the plot is just so, I'm still entertained because I want to know what these characters are doing.
Yeah.
But you could have the greatest idea in the world, the greatest plot in the world, but if I don't feel anything for the characters, I'm not interested in that book or that movie or whatever. So for me, it was always from that. I mean, I grew up on Dean Koontz, and he would create. I mean, arguably, there's a period there where he created the mysterious stranger comes to town,
Mm-hmm.
and saves the woman with the dog who's either an alien or a psychic or a government experiment, golden retriever. There was that formula there, but the characters were different, and the stuff he's even writing today is really, really character based. Great. It's almost like the plot is beside the point.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, writing horror, yeah, you got to have obviously a good twist and a good plot and all that stuff, but it's the characters. Like people reading Dirty Deeds, the crime thriller. When I first pitched that to Amazon, to Kindle Press through their Kindle Scout program, um, they were like, and then when they started reading it, they were like, all right, we want this.
Yeah.
Because of the character, because the plot was pretty basic. I mean, there's a twist there, but it's pretty basic. But once they started reading that character, they were hooked. They were like, all right, I want to do this. There's a really great thriller author, Dawn Lee McKenna.
Mm-hmm.
And I always said, if she wrote a book, if she wrote 50,000 words of her 4 or 5 characters sitting on a shrimp boat talking, I would read that book and give it 5 stars, because the characters are so different and it's such great different voices for them. The action, the plot, the mystery, all that is beside the point, because I want to know what happens to these people next. And that's, for me, that's why I love reading a series, because of that. So I think, I mean, you got to have the tropes in horror. Obviously, there has to be the horror tropes there, but I don't think it really works. It doesn't matter how good the plot is. There's a couple of people who have told me when they read Dying Days, they said, what's funny is there's a couple of books where you forget it's about zombies. Like there goes several chapters without any zombies.
Mm-hmm.
It's just these people fighting and interacting and just being awful to one another. And you forget that this is it's a post-apocalyptic thing, but it's not a zombie book, because they forgot there were zombies actually in the book because they were so invested in these characters. And for me, like, that's the greatest review.
Yeah. Okay. That's a different answer to anything anyone else has said.
I mean, I don't believe any of that crap, but I mean, it's something different.
Okay, I'll put a disclaimer. Disclaimer: bullshit coming.
most of my answers have been bullshit too. So. Kind of, probably it's easier if you just put a disclaimer for the entire interview. That would make it a lot easier.
Okay, but I mean, you get any 2 authors together, there will be a bit of bullshit flying about.
Well, yeah, but we know that's part of the. Isn't that part of it? I mean, we make up shit for a living.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
my dad, my dad wants to get business cards made up for me, saying R.F. Blackstone, professional bullshitter.
Yeah.
I said to him, I can't do that. He goes, why? I said, I'm not a politician. So where can everyone, the millions of people who watch this, where can they find you?
The easiest is ArmandRosamilia.com. I'm super active on Twitter, Armand Author. I love talking to people on there. I have 2 exclusive books on Godless.com right now. I have Toolshed and Death Metal, which you talk about. And also we'll be putting, me and Frank Edler will be, I pulled the Shocker series off of Amazon, and I'll be putting it for exclusive on Godless,
Ooh, awesome.
which will be a cool, and they'll be like 89 cents. They'll be like super cheap.
Yep.
And that's it. I mean, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I go on there. Mostly I go on Instagram and Facebook for the little free libraries. I'm very big in that community. And otherwise, Armand Rosamilia at gmail.com. Send me a message. I love talking shop. I could do this for hours.
Oh yeah. Oh, that honestly, me too. I just realized I've got a lot of questions I want to ask you. So chances are there'll be a part 2.
You know what? I got no problem with that. I would enjoy that. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'll put the links to everything in the description. Thank you so much for being on.
Oh, you know what? Thanks for inviting me. This is cool.
And once again, a very big thank you to Armand for coming on the show today. You can find links to his work and to all the podcasts on the Project Entertainment Network in the description below. And as always, if there's any author you'd like to see me chat with, feel free to put their name in the comments below. And once again, boys and ghouls, I'm Arthur Blackstone. This is Behind the Keyboard, and stay spooky.